Wow, this looks so official.
No days off!
So far away.
Every time we get the ball, they get the ball. Every time they get the ball, we get the ball.
Nice. Nice.
Would not say that I'm Mona Lisa Vito. Stupid thing. Where we got snap face there when we were talking about that. Yeah, well, we're on to Cincinnati. We're on to Cincinnati. We're on to Cincinnati.
Okay, that's it.
Oh, happy 69th birthday, Bill Belichick. Also, 21 years ago today, Tom Brady was drafted. That was the birthday gift that kept on giving for Bill. Welcome to NFL Live, everyone. Just 13 days away from the draft, and I love the hat, but it's not as good as a hat that you're about to see. I'm going to continue this countdown, by the way, until we're actually in Cleveland. Welcome to NFL Live, and welcome to Dan Orlovsky wearing that hat. Dan,
big birthday.
Yeah, it's your favorite birthday.
My favorite birthday, certainly. Finally got a hat to match the years. Happy birthday, Belichick.
Wondering if you're going to keep that hat on for the rest of the show. Mina Kimes and Jeff Darlington will not allow it. We'll also have Todd McShay joining us later. Coming later also, the reason it may be Super Bowl or bust for the Rams. We'll tell you the player they need to get to the Super Bowl. But let's get right into it. And we begin in the AFC. Who's going to catch the Chiefs, and how can they do it? So the Chiefs, of course, been busy retooling their offensive line this offseason, releasing both their starting offensive tackles, signing multiple interior offensive linemen, including Joe Thuney. Can the Bills overtake Kansas City with their top priority this offseason, locking up key players, signing Micah Hyde, Matt Milano, and Darrell Williams to extensions? What about the Ravens? They've bolstered their offense with additions of Kevin Zeitler and Sammy Watkins, but lost some key pieces on defense, including Matthew Judon. And then in Cleveland, the Browns have made their defense a top priority this offseason, signing Jadeveon Clowney, John Johnson, and Troy Hill. Of course, the news earlier, too, that the Browns are terminating the contract of defensive tackle Sheldon Richardson. The move actually saves Cleveland $11 million in cap space, but leaves a gigantic hole, certainly on the Browns' D-line. So, Mina, who is the biggest challenger to the Chiefs in the AFC?
Well, it's the obvious answer because they lost to them in the championship, but I'm going to go the AFC championship, but I'm going to go with the Bills. And here's why, Laura. This time of year, we look at every team ahead of the draft and we try to figure out what are their needs. We look at their depth charts. What are their holes? The Bills don't really have holes. They have areas where they could add depth. I think edge rusher, giving Jerry Hughes some help and potentially a successor, cornerback, tight end. But that roster is the most complete roster in the AFC. The second most complete roster, and this has been complicated a little bit by today's news, is Cleveland. Again, going into the draft, not a lot of holes. I had written down off-ball linebacker. Now, with the release of Sheldon Richardson, they do need to address defensive tackle. There's a couple options out there. The Raiders recently cut Maurice Hurst, but I imagine that's something they might consider targeting in the draft. But outside of that, again, Cleveland, a very complete roster from bottom to top. And honestly, both of these rosters, Buffalo and Cleveland, are better than the Kansas City roster. Kansas City just has the best quarterback on planet Earth.
I completely agree with both those teams, and I think the thing for the draft with both those teams and organizations is they got to hit on defense. If you look at Buffalo, it's really a developmental-based organization, even though they're winning so much. But I look at they've got to get somebody outside of or opposite Tre'Davious White. And my mind immediately goes to like Greg Newsome from Northwestern, a long, rangy corner that can play a bunch of different types of coverage, right? You can play in man coverage and run with receivers like they like to do sometimes with Tre'Davious White. He can play off zone coverage, break on the ball, and you see the length right there. So somebody that's going to shore up their coverage unit on the outside for Buffalo is a huge deal. And Brandon Beane drafts so well that I love that. And then for Cleveland, again, it's got to be on the defensive side of the ball. I would pick Mina's favorite player, the Earth Giant, Zaven Collins, linebacker from Tulsa. Sometimes it looks like he's running after Olaf. But this guy's like 6'5", 250 pounds playing linebacker. He's great in coverage. He's also great as a pass rusher. Specifically losing Sheldon Richardson, maybe utilizing him as a pass rusher along with Clowney and along with Myles Garrett is going to be impactful. But Cleveland's got to make sure that they get somebody on the defensive side of the football that in their front seven is going to be a big-time playmaker. Both these teams have to close the gap with Kansas City, and they have to do it on defense.
I know Dan is the smart one on the show with the thing and the touch screen and all that.
There we go.
And he uses his brain to make these picks, and deservedly so. I just can't get my head. I know, Mina, you deserve that, and Laura, you too. I don't know why I said Dan was the smartest. But look, I refuse to the Browns in this place where they're going to be any kind of contender to the Chiefs. I get the Bills, no doubt, but like, why are we not putting more respect on the Titans at this point after what they've done the last 2 seasons? Like, I know that they've got some deficiencies, but they did improve their pass rush this offseason. I still believe in Mike Vrabel's ability to do whatever it takes on defense, and maybe I'm just putting too much heart into this by saying I think Vrabel will figure it out. But between Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, and what they've done the last 2 seasons, I don't know. I'm just maybe putting more faith in what I've seen than what I'm willing to project. I just think that the Titans, especially over the Browns, are more of a team to beat in the AFC than the Browns are.
Well, I'll use your phrasing. They've got some deficiencies. And to Mina's point, I don't think that Buffalo and Cleveland have any. Now, with Cleveland, I got to see the secondary come together. I got to see John Johnson and Grant Telpin on the field at the same time. Greedy Williams and Denzel Ward, Troy Hill, because that secondary is a weakness and it could be a strength. But for Tennessee, Corey Davis is a relatively large loss. How do they kind of replace his production opposite A.J. Brown? The corners aren't great. Losing Arthur Smith is a relatively big deal.
Huge.
So while I like Tennessee, they're not on the level of Cleveland and Buffalo.
You know, at the end of the day, guys, I think what
Cleveland.
does sort of, well, Jeff just can't get his head around Cleveland. But what does sort of pan out here is the fact that these teams in the AFC are closer to the Chiefs than people might realize, and a lot of this can be solidified for them in catching them in the draft. Now to the latest on the Texans' Deshaun Watson. All 22 women who have filed civil suits against the quarterback accusing him of sexual assault and sexual harassment have been identified in court documents. The women alleging Watson booked them for massage sessions through Instagram and then committed alleged acts. Watson has denied the allegations, and his attorney, Rusty Hardin, has said the sexual activity was consensual. One woman dropped her lawsuit when judges ruled the women could not remain anonymous, but another woman filed a new lawsuit. She's a freelance makeup artist who said Watson coerced her against her will and left her powerless. Texans GM Nick Caserio held a press conference earlier today.
Yeah, I would say I really don't have any comment. I know Cal and ownership put a letter out a few weeks ago just relative to the organizational stance relative to where we are. So I don't have anything to add other than it's a legal process. We're respectful of the legal process and where that is. So we're focused on today. We're focused on getting ready for the offseason program and getting ready for the draft. So that's where our focus is. We're not going to really get into a lot of hypotheticals and a lot of speculation. I'm not really good at that. Maybe somebody else is better than that than me. I mean, if you want to speculate, you should probably go buy Bitcoin and focus on that. So we're just going to focus on the things that we can control, which is kind of getting ready for the draft and trying to take advantage of the opportunities to continue to add to our team and build our roster. And we'll just take it one day at a time and focus on the things that we can control.
We'll continue to keep you updated on the latest with Deshaun Watson. More NFL Live coming your way after this break.
I'll go with Detroit. I think Detroit's interesting. You know, they're picking at number 7 overall. We've talked a lot about Jamar Chase coming off the board. Maybe at 5 to Cincinnati with Joe Burrow, his former teammate. Maybe at 6, you got Devontae Smith who could go 6 to Miami. And then I think at that spot at 7, that's where you can see Jalen Waddle come off the board. Remember, Detroit lost Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones, 2 of their top receivers from a year ago.
So the retirement of longtime left tackle Anthony Costanzo in Indianapolis left a gaping hole on the left side of that offensive line. Something we thought they might address in free agency by signing, say, Trent Williams. Unfortunately, it's still a hole. The hole I expect them to target in the draft. Really, the board could shake out any way. We could be looking at, say, Tevin Jenkins, or maybe they would pick a tackle later. But in any case, it's something that Indianapolis needs to address.
Yeah, Jacksonville, I want you to go get a tight end. I look at 2 names. Hunter Long out of Boston College, a little bit of more of an inline wide tight end like a Kyle Rudolph, and then Pat Freiermuth out of Penn State. That's going to be a little bit more of your flex tight end. A little bit remind me of Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles, but you're taking Trevor Lawrence. And you've got some players on the outside. Go get you a tight end that could work the middle of the field for your young budding quarterback.
Just 13 days away from the NFL draft, here are Todd McShay's top 10 wide receivers for the 2021 draft. 3 of his top 6 overall players are receivers in Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Waddle. And McShay has 8 receivers among his top 50 prospects, the most out of any position group in the top 50. We thought last year's receiver group was good. This one even better. Mina, which wide receiver is most interesting to you?
So I find Alabama wide receiver Jalen Waddle, who Todd has 3rd overall, to be fascinating because, in my opinion, where he lands in the draft will go a long way towards defining his NFL career. He is incredibly explosive. As Dan Orlovsky might say, he's a tutty waiting to happen. Ooh. Just yards after the catch, explosive, horizontally, vertically, the speed is off the charts. If you get him in space, well, he looks like the guy you're seeing on your television right now there, Tyreek Hill. And that's who he's being comped to most frequently for obvious reasons. However, I think Tyreek Hill is instructive because there's an alternate reality where he's not drafted by Kansas City and doesn't end up with Patrick Mahomes, who can, of course, get him the ball vertically, but also Andy Reid, who knew how to use Tyreek to get him in space on those fly sweeps, using him in the slot and outside, getting him open. I'm not sure Jalen will have success in the NFL if he doesn't have a play caller who can do the same. And so to me, he's the most interesting of that top 3 because I'm really curious to see where he lands on draft night.
I think that's such a great point, Mina. And Todd's going to name the one team that we all kind of agree he fits to. But let me say this with the comp to Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill does one thing as good, if not better, than anybody in the NFL. That first step at the line of scrimmage is violent. It is sudden. It is twitchy and quick. Yeah. And so that's what allows him and that long speed to come into play. I don't know if Jalen Waddle is there with that first step right now. And so for him to utilize that speed that everyone raves about and does that comp to Tyreek Hill, he's got to have that first step at the line of scrimmage to allow him to win. Because if they are going to move him around, if teams are going to draft him and move him around, defenses are going to try to get hands on him. Don't let Jalen Waddle get to 7 yards downfield because that's when the speed is going to come in. So if he's going to be as impactful as a Tyreek Hill, it's got to be about that first step, and that first step is special. And I don't know if Jalen Waddle is there just yet.
Todd, big teaser by Dan there for you about this fit for Waddle. So which team is the best fit for Jalen Waddle in your mind, McShay?
I love him in Carolina. You know, Carolina picks at number 8. They've got their quarterback in Sam Bradford. They've got Christian McCaffrey at the running back position. And you look at the wide receiver position, yeah, they have 2 starters. Bring in a third. You know, I would love to see him matched up with DJ Moore or Robbie Anderson. Yeah. I'd love to see him in Joe Brady's offensive system. Brady is creative. We saw what he did with LSU. I know what he can do in terms of utilizing a versatile weapon like Waddle. And listen, I understand what Dan's saying in terms of that first step explosiveness, but watch the rest of the play. You know, his ability to get in and out of breaks, his vertical presence, and then the run after catch. Don't forget, Devontae Smith, his teammate, had probably the best year that we've ever seen in college football history from a wide receiver. He won the Heisman Trophy. But in the first 4 games when Waddle was healthy, he had 13 fewer catches and 74 more yards. Think about that. I mean, that's how explosive this guy is, and that's the kind of difference maker he can be in an offense with the quarterback now, with Darnold, and also with weapons around to take a little bit of the attention away.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Todd, Waddle's such a refined route runner already. There's even more, of course, that he can accomplish there. Let's get to McShay's quarterback rankings. The top 5 comes as no surprise, but the drop-off from Mac Jones at 19 overall to Kellen Mond at 88, you know, that definitely catches the eye. It makes you wonder when we'll see the next quarterback selected after that top 5 come off the board. So, Todd, you first. Who's the 6th QB off the board?
Yeah, Laura, this one's interesting because Kellen Mond to me is the 6th best. That's where I have the ranking. But Davis Mills, when I start to talk to general managers, coaches, and scouts, Davis Mills is the guy that's probably the most polarizing. Some teams think I'm way too high on him. Some think I'm way too low on him in that 2nd, 3rd round range. But Mills only 11 starts. But remember, he was a 5-star recruit, the number 1 player in the high school rankings coming into school. He's got a lot of upside.
Well, I'm going to go with the guy you picked at 6th. I'm going with Kellen Mond. I think 2 things why. We've only seen Kellen Mond progress at Texas A&M. He has gotten better and better and better every single year. And also the coaching he's gotten. Jimbo Fisher has forced him to do so much at the line of scrimmage. Hey, you got to handle the protection. You got to change the run game this way. That's necessary at the NFL level. I really like what Kellen Mond brings to an NFL organization.
I felt like Mina was dying to get in there, but we're going to break, so we'll do that later. All right, today, a very special anniversary for Tom Brady. Oh, yeah, just 13 days away from the NFL draft. Presumptive #1 pick Trevor Lawrence had some great comments in an interview with Sports Illustrated. He said, "I don't have this huge chip on my shoulder that everyone's out to get me, and I'm trying to prove everybody wrong." Marissa, who is Lawrence's wife, added, "There's also more in life than playing football." Trevor went on to say, "Yeah, and I think people mistake that for being a competitor. I think that's unhealthy to a certain extent. Just always thinking you've got to prove somebody wrong, you've got to do more, you've got to be better." Mina, as you saw this, I know it really struck you. What did these quotes remind you of?
Laura, it brought me back to, I guess, 3 years ago. It was, I did an interview with Aaron Rodgers, and he told me that after he won the Super Bowl with Green Bay, he had a similar epiphany, which was that football wasn't all consuming for him, that there were other things in life he cared about. Now, people might be listening to that and saying, well, Aaron Rodgers was much further along in his career. Of course, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. Football has to be all consuming early on. But I don't think that's true, because I think Rodgers, and it sounds like Lawrence as well, tapped into something really impressive, which is that, you know, you can be passionate about what you do and obsessive and work hard, but it doesn't have to be your identity, and it doesn't have to be the only thing you're passionate about. And as far as the competition goes, I mean, Trevor Lawrence led the charge to play football last year when he didn't have to. He would have gone first in the draft overall. So I don't know how anyone can question this kid's work ethic or competitive drive. And if anything, I came out of this, reading this piece, even more impressed by his level of self-awareness.
Yeah, I think self-awareness is the perfect word. Maturity is another word that kind of popped into my mind. I mean, you got to remember, this guy was the #1 recruit coming out of high school. 38-2 as a starter at Clemson, national championship winner. I mean, he's done it all, and he's been the presumptive #1 overall pick in this year's class for the last 5-6 years, basically coming out of high school. So, I mean, how do you have a chip at that point? But he was self-aware, and he shows maturity. And I got 30 minutes. He was sitting in his truck before the Wake Forest game, the first game of the season, and I was blown away by how much he had matured from his freshman year to where he is now. All the social media stuff in the offseason, the injustice that's going on, and leading that front for Clemson, he has come a long way. Now, these quotes, they don't matter. Let's get to what's important. What is important is when teams, talking about Jacksonville, the Jets, teams drafting at the top of the board, we're looking at him. They all know the physical skills. They all know his maturity and how calm he is and how he handles everything on the sideline. What they were worried about or digging into was, can he recall plays like an Andrew Luck? Because we're comparing him to an Andrew Luck in terms of grades. That's the area that they were digging in on. And when you come from this offense where I watched the Miami game. In the first 20 plays, I had to fast forward because it was run, screen, quick game, screen, quick game, run. And then it takes 20 plays to get to an NFL type of throw. So that's the development that he's going to have to make, and I think it's more mental than it is physical.
Yeah, I love the fact that you put that into context with the recall of the offense. I will talk about the quotes, though, because when we make the phrase or we make the question like, can you place other things more important than football in your life? Listen, highly successful people, specifically highly successful athletes, can have multiple things in their life that are of the utmost importance. They just have the capability of doing it. They have the work ethic, the intellect, the diligence to do it. Number 2, motivation is fleeting for athletes. It comes and goes. Give me habits. Do you have championship habits? Do you have habits of greatness? That is going to carry Trevor Lawrence along with his talent to be what the #1 pick should be for the Jacksonville Jaguars. What are your habits? Respectfully, when his dad makes the comment in the article, "Dad, I don't care. This is not your journey. This is my journey." If you're Trevor Lawrence, this is Trevor Lawrence's journey. It's going to be him getting up and doing the work, him doing the workouts, him leading the study group,
I love that.
him doing all that. So, Dad, it might not be your walk. It's his. And the last thing I'd say is this, because a quote that was left out in regards to this conversation. At the very end of the Sports Illustrated article, I'd suggest everyone go read it. His high school coach asks him, "Trevor, give me goals. You must have a goal. Name me one." And his response, "I just want to be one of the best that's ever done it." Okay? So, that's from his mouth. And one of the things that I have been reminded of over the past month is hear it from the player's mouth, and the tape is everything. And on his tape, he shows me that he wants to be great. And so that would be all that matters to me if I'm Jacksonville.
You know, we're not in the business on this show of providing people with life advice, but what I would say is that the perspective that everyone here has provided, in addition to the quotes that Trevor Lawrence provided, is good advice. That's a good way to look at life. Be well-rounded, appreciate multiple things in your life, and it's going to probably work out well for you. It's something that I'm always trying to figure out as well. Okay, speaking of successful people, what did Mel Kiper sound like when Tom Brady was being drafted by the Patriots in 2000? Check out this excerpt from 21 years ago.
A touchdown pass, and actually all 16 games he started against Big Ten opposition during his career. Accurate, it was a very catchable ball. He really knows when to take a little off as well. I think that's the key, and he stands in that pocket very tough. He'll take a hit. Question's going to be mobility. He only runs a 5.2, 5.40. And of course, when you have those edge pass rushers, you have to avoid the initial defensive end, the initial pass rusher. Can he do that at the pro level? Going to New England, Drew Bledsoe, his forte certainly isn't mobility. It's dropping back, throwing the football. Brady can do that, and certainly New England's offense already designed for Bledsoe. Now comes Brady. Can he overcome that lack of mobility?
Kiper, that was a good evaluation, man. I'm impressed. What round did you have him in, though? What kind of grade did you give him?
Good enough, Todd. Good enough. He went to the end of the 6th round. Brady ran that 5.24 and had a 24 vertical. 2 worst numbers of any quarterback in 43 years I've ever written up outside of Ryan Mallett, who ironically went to the Patriots. Go figure. Evaluating quarterbacks is incredibly difficult. You think you know, but a lot of times you don't know.
Hey, that clip, by the way, part of an NFL draft special focusing on all-time draft QB rankings, now streaming exclusively on ESPN Plus with the great people you saw on the screen. How about this tweet from Tom Brady today? Big day. My NFL career can legally buy a beer, or really, if you're Brady, probably that avocado tequila. Of course, Brady at pick 199 is the greatest steal in draft history, but he's definitely not the only NFL legend to go overlooked in the draft. Just look at some of these Hall of Famers that went overlooked in their draft. Shannon Sharpe was the 192nd pick in 1990. Deacon Jones, the 186th pick in 1961. Bart Starr didn't come off the board till pick 200 in 1956. And what about Rosie Brown, the Giants legend left tackle, was the 322nd pick in 1953. So how about some steals in this draft? Who's a possible late round find this year, Todd? Oh, sorry, Mina.
I'm going to go with Simi Fehoko.
The guy I really like is Darius Washington, safety out of TCU. You'll hear a lot about Trevon Merrick, his other fellow safety, who'll probably go in the first round. But Darius can play, man. He's got the same read and react abilities, speed. He is 5'8", which is probably why he's going to be drafted later. But I'm telling you, this kid can absolutely play in the NFL, maybe as a slot corner, but as a safety as well.
I love that one. I'm going to go Nico Collins, wide receiver from Michigan. We're talking a guy that is 6'4", 215 pounds, 37-inch vertical, and ran 4.4. He's going to be a great one-on-one late-round receiver. Averaged almost like 20 yards per catch last year for Michigan, and they didn't have great quarterback play, okay? So you're talking about a wide receiver that is going to be as physically talented as many of the guys that are going to go in early in this draft, but struggled or was hurt a little bit by subpar quarterback play. The one-on-one contested catches is his strength.
I jumped the gun earlier because I'm so excited about this guy on day 3. Simi Fehoko, the wide receiver from Stanford. He's 6'4", 222 pounds, ran a 4.43 in his pro day 40-yard dash. And if you watch him on tape, go back to 2019, he averaged fewer than 3 catches per game, but he set a school record for yards per catch with 23.6. Then in 2020, if you want to study one tape on him and you want to just figure out who this guy can be in the NFL, watch the double overtime win against UCLA. He had 16 catches for 230 yards. If he's in the right situation and continues to develop and learns how to actually play the receiver position, this guy's got a chance to be a stud.
Hey, Todd, don't get it twisted. You didn't jump the gun. I did. I was wrong there. Coming up, Dan, you?
I'm stoked for him. I think Matthew Stafford is going to be an awesome addition to this organization.
There you go. All right. Thank you.
Supposedly he's talented.
Yeah, me too. No matter how you slice it, this has got to work out when you consider 2 first-round picks given up to get Stafford. Here's Sean McVay and his new QB1.
I've always admired his game from afar, the toughness, the way that he rallied guys around him. You know, one of my favorite things about him is you just watch the way his teammates respond to him. I can't tell you the amount of people that have reached out to me, whether it's coaches or teammates, that can't say enough good things about him. And then as you get to know him, you can't help but love the guy. And You see why people speak the way they do about him, and I am fired up, to say the least, to get a chance to work with him.
McVay and the Rich Eisen Show. All right, so let's paint a little picture here, Dan. Let's look at this Rams offense and what it's going to look like. How will it look different than it looked last season?
I think three things will stand out. First of all, we know that they love the play-action game, but it'll really take a step forward in two different areas. One, the chunk throws, like that 15, 20, 25-yard crossing chunk throw. The arm strength is just going to be there where you can just create more windows for you to attack, and those windows don't have to be as big. They don't have to be as open because of the arm strength. And the second thing would be chunking the ball downfield. A little bit more of those big ball, hard ball play actions that you can take those big play shots. The second aspect would be this. Sometimes the play action isn't working. Sometimes it's just not happening in that game. The defense is playing more disciplined or whatnot. And you just have to play drop back football. Matthew Stafford's good enough. He's never had a run game to utilize the play action pass, really. So, like, his drop back game will be a step forward for that football team. And the third thing is, I think that the Rams offense will be better equipped to handle 3rd and 8 pluses, which oftentimes determine football games because he can just make throws that, in all due respect, Jared Goff isn't able to make.
Yeah, the Rams traded for Stafford for one big reason, which is they wanted their offense to be more explosive. Dan talked about the chunk throws. Our last 2 years on 15-yard plus passes, Jared Goff ranked 26th in QBR. Matt Stafford was 7th. Wow. Dan spoke a little bit about some of the things they can do to achieve that, but another change that needs to happen is the personnel, frankly, because the way this team was built in the past was to accommodate Jared Goff. They did have Brandon Cooks as a deep threat, but he's not there anymore. And yes, I know they signed Deshaun Jackson in the offseason, but of course he has struggled with injuries over the years. In my mind, to fully take advantage of everything Matt Stafford brings to the table, the reason you traded for him, you need another deep threat. In the draft, I really like Dyami Brown out of UNC. Brings that downfield speed. Dan loves
You just said Dyami Brown?
He loves him.
You're in my brain, Kimes. You have to get out of my brain.
We both love him.
That's scary for you, Mina.
Dyami Brown, North Carolina. Yeah.
Go ahead, Mina.
Which is very important in the Browns offense. And then I'll just throw out another name. Anthony Schwartz out of Auburn jumps out as a possibility for them. Obviously, they don't have early round draft picks, but I really think the Rams need to address that in the draft.
Yeah, Schwartz is a track star, so if you're talking speed, you can get that there as well. Jeff, is it really like Super Bowl or bust here for the Rams? Set us straight.
I mean, when you trade away your franchise quarterback for 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick just to kind of get him off your books and acquire a guy that you think is the answer, yeah. I mean, it is. And look, if they get to the AFC Championship game, of course, it's a successful season. Anything can happen when you get into the dance that late, but there's a lot of pressure on this organization, whether it's Sean McVay, whether it's Les Snead, who has basically in his actions told the world that first-round picks are overrated. You talk about needing to acquire talent through the draft. It's going to be very difficult because, let's be honest, a general manager who bats .300 in the draft is probably going to be set up for life. And at this point, you got to have draft picks to reach that point, and the Rams just keep giving them away. So there's an incredible amount of pressure on everybody in this organization that Matt Stafford is, in fact, the answer.
Yeah, 2 things. For them to be legit Super Bowl contenders, I completely agree with Mina. You have to get speed at the wide receiver position. And I will be intrigued to see if Sean McVay tweaks this offense a little bit scheme-wise to go back to 2018. A little bit more of the zone scheme, less of the gap scheme, because the gap scheme I felt pigeonholed them a little bit with their play-action game. Go back to the 2018 zone, outside zone, and that play-action pass bootleg off of it. I'll be interested to see if he goes back to that a little bit more with Matthew Stafford.
Some great players, guys, are getting healthy. Some players who we weren't able to see last season, and we're excited to see them back. So, Jeff, we begin with you. Give us your player that you're most excited to see back on the field who's been hurt.
Odell Beckham Jr. I'm still waiting for the next chapter from Odell. There is no way in my mind that I will ever believe that that talent was simply gone based on the lack of success that he's had in Cleveland and then the injury. Odell is going to come back at some point, whether it's with the Browns or another team, but I truly believe his rebound is on the way.
I'm excited to see Saquon Barkley, not just because he's on my dynasty team, but because the Giants offense added some real playmakers this offseason. Now, my concern is, did they upgrade the offensive line enough to help, which they didn't, to help Saquon? But I want to see if he's still got that burst coming back from that injury, because this offense should be interesting.
No, Cowboys Nation, pigs are not flying. I am going to go with my best friend Tad Prescott's brother, Dak Prescott. I'm excited to see what he's going to bring to this football team because the pressure is high. And truthfully, he needs to play better than he did at the start of last season for this team to win football games. But getting him back healthy is good for the NFL.
7 months after tearing his ACL, Nick Bosa looks to be progressing really well in his rehab. You see him there. He looks quite good. And listen, this 49ers team is not going to have as bad look as they did last season with injuries, but getting Bosa back on that D-line, the pass rush, of course, immediately improves, and his explosiveness is game-changing. So excited to see Bosa back.
CEO, I'm in pro.
Fields launches downfield. He's got it!
He is tossing dimes out here.
Talk about guts.
He is as tough as they come.
Yeah.
This quarterback class has a chance to be historic, with as many as 5 signal callers potentially selected in the first 10 picks. Premiering this Saturday is ESPN's new series, QB21, with Kirk Herbstreit. Hey, Justin Fields. Herbstreit's going to sit down with some of the top quarterbacks in the NFL draft. And here, Kirk joins fellow Buckeye, Justin Fields, who gets a visit from another Ohio State legend. Take a look.
Welcome to Columbus, Justin Fields.
He is tossing dimes.
Fields is going to fling it for the end zone touchdown. To the house goes Fields on a 10-yard touchdown run.
There's a former Buckeye himself who played in the NFL and had a brilliant career, who I'm sure you're familiar with, Eddie George. Eddie, thank you, my man, for stopping in and saying hello. I know that you hear me okay, Ed?
Yep, I got you. Can you hear me?
George is gone! Eddie George!
How does he win the team over? He did it in high school. He did it at Georgia. He did it at Ohio State. You know, how do you win the room over as a rookie quarterback?
Be yourself. I mean, you know, you don't want to go in and just do a whole bunch of talking. You want to live your creed by what you do, not by what you say. If you come in to work on time, you show up, you're humble, you embrace your teammates, you show appreciation. Things that made you successful already at Ohio State. He came in from Georgia to win the locker room over in a matter of months at Ohio State. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. If he comes in and handles his business and shows that he's a professional, shows that he wants to win, just being himself is going to win the locker room over.
Appreciate you, Eddie, and appreciate you for the advice. And I definitely look forward to talking with you in the future, and maybe having more conversations like these, where maybe you can help my career grow and help me become a better football player. So appreciate you.
No problem, my man.
Remember the Elite 11. Trevor Lawrence was the guy everybody's known about for 4 or 5 years, and you were creating some momentum yourself. But talk about the motivation you had to compete in that, and what the results were that camp.
Going into that tournament, everybody was predicting Trevor to come out the MVP. They called me the silent assassin because I'm kind of an introvert. I really wasn't there to make friends. I was there to win the tournament, and that's what I did.
So far, 3 jet breeze, switch, 8 person, 1 already.
Why let's go? Got him.
Oh, it just looks like one team is a little overmatched, and this quarterback is throwing dimes.
The 2017 Elite 11 MVP, Justin Fields.
I'm sure there's at least 6-7 teams in our league that'll take him.
QB21 with Kirk Herbstreit featuring Justin Fields airs Saturday, April 17th at 3:30 p.m. on ESPN. A reminder, too, that Herbie, Desmond Howard, Reese Davis, and Todd McShay will cover the draft on College Game Day on ABC. Don't miss that. Hey, big day Monday with Trey Lance having his second pro day. He will throw, similarly to Justin Fields' second pro day this week. Remember, his pro day was earlier than everybody else's, but as you can see on your screen, the 49ers and the Broncos among teams expected to attend. The 49ers went to Justin Fields, and of course, Mac Jones' second pro day. So all these teams going to these pro days, and the interesting thing about that too is that they're kind of trying to play a little mind games here with everybody else and say, yeah, we're interested in a quarterback, but we also might be open to trading back. Dan, what are teams looking at heading into Lance's pro day Monday?
Yeah, you guys know I'm not a huge fan of pro days, but I think his is the most important because the tape isn't there this year, right? So I'd say the biggest thing is, have you fixed that one flaw mechanically for you? Now everyone watch his right leg, the back leg. He's going to get to the top of his drop, and it's perfectly locked out. Now what does that do? That is going to force two things. His feet have to come together at the top, and then that raises the upper body. Sometimes Trey Lance misses throws. The accuracy isn't there. It is directly tied to that. Now everyone's going to sit there and go, man, that's an easy fix. No, it's not. You've got to erase years of doing it that way, and that takes time and commitment and thousands of repetitions. So if I'm a team, I'm going to the pro day going, show me that you've realized that. Show me that you've started to work on it. And when you get to the top of the drop, I see that flexed knee. So I know that you've already started to attack that, because if you don't, the talent never gets to show itself. Now, if I'm a team also going to the pro day, and that's a physical focus, I want to see how he's interacting with the coaches. Again, I didn't get to go to games this past year. I want to see when he's thrown 10 dimes in a row, what's his focus level like? Is he still absolutely razor sharp? When he misses 2 throws on air to wide open guys with no defense, what's his body language like? I'm paying attention to all that stuff. That's why this pro day is super important, and more so than others.
First of all, I love doing shows with people who actually take the time to study the tape and actually know what they're looking for when they study the tape. And Mina and Dan, I've enjoyed this thoroughly. Aww. Secondly, I completely agree with what Dan is saying in terms of the mechanics. And let's face it, footwork equals ball placement. Yeah. And if your feet aren't right, more often than not, the ball placement's not going to be where it needs to be. Other than that, and that is hugely important, but other than that, he's everything you want. He's built like a tight end, 6'4", 222 pounds. He's physical, he's tough, he's competitive. Talk to anyone in the building around that program, they just rave about how the chip on his shoulder, the aggressive approach he takes to the position, how dedicated he is, and then the mobility, the ability to extend, and the arm strength. I would love to see him, Mina, in a place, let's say San Francisco at 3, where he has a year under Jimmy Garoppolo, or even better, Atlanta, maybe a year or 2 under Matt Ryan, where he can develop, work on his mechanics, and then become the star that we all know that he can be in the NFL.
Todd, I couldn't agree more about Trey Lance sitting for a year. And I say that having said earlier in this week that I think he has the highest ceiling of any quarterback in the draft. But in order to achieve that, he needs reps. Like when you go back and you watch the North Dakota State games from 2019, it's not like a high school offense. I mean, he's under center. He is using the full entire football field. Yeah. He drops back, but he only averaged 18 attempts per game. It was a primarily run-first offense. He just needs experience throwing the football more. It's as simple as that, to Dan's point about the mechanics. And I do think he can get that if he sits for a year in one of the teams you mentioned.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting if we'll see what we kind of saw from Fields Pro Day, where these teams, the 49ers maybe, start running him through their offense and running him through specific things. You got to think they're looking directly at that footwork like you guys are talking about, and how his accuracy is affected by that. Thank you guys so much for being with us all week long here on NFL Live. I'm talking to the people watching at home, and I guess thanks to all you people on the show as well. We'll see you